So, good morning, everyone. Begin with the reflections on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts, they will be the heirs. I'm going to continue reading Master Hua's talk on taking refuge. I found this talk especially inspiring because he really goes into this shift from a life in the world to life now as someone committed to the spiritual path. And he began with saying we really need to work on our eating, wearing clothes, and sleeping. And then he shared how he made a vow that he'll wait for every single one of his disciples to become a Buddha before he became a Buddha. So now he goes to the next section. He says, today, because I know that none of you people are afraid of becoming Buddhas, I told you about my vow. And now that you have taken refuge, you must all have faith and make vows and practice accordingly. You must have deep faith, sincere vows, and real practice. First of all, you must have faith in the Buddha. You should take the Buddha as seriously as you do your food. Right? We all eat our food. You can't go a single day without eating. And in the same way, you should feel that you can't go for a single day without believing in the Buddha. You must have deep faith. You can't go a single day without wearing clothes. You can't go a single day without believing in the Buddha. You can't go a single day without sleeping. So you can't go a single day without believing in the Buddha. This means that at all times, in every moment, you must have deep, profound faith. During the ceremony, when we take refuge, we actually repeat each refuge afterwards. And I was really struck by the language in the ritual. It says, I'd rather give up my body and life than to put my faith somewhere else. And I thought reflected when I was just reading it, actually in front, to say, wow, that's a pretty strong commitment to say that, this is my path. Somebody can take a gun to my head and tell me to do something, believe something else, and I'll say, no, I'd give up my life. This is where I put my faith, because I know this is going to lead to liberation. This body of mine, impermanent. The things that the world believes in, fairly unstable. But these refuges, I put my faith in. And because we have faith in that, accordingly we make vows. So it's interesting, we make vows out of the things that we believe. Second, you must make vows. Aware of the suffering the living beings of this world must undergo, you should make a vow to cultivate, when you obtain success, to lead all beings to leave suffering and attain bliss, to end birth and death. So in the ceremony, we actually make bodhisattva vows. We say, living beings are limitless. I vowed. We say save them all, but I think sometimes I like the word serve them all, to be of service to everyone. We say afflictions are endless. I vow to end them all. Dharma doors, or you could say the methods for awakening are infinite. I vow to learn them all. And it says the Buddha way is supreme, it's unsurpassed. I vow to realize it. And even after the ceremony, we had a visitor who was watching the ceremony. And he was quite struck. He said, wow, during the ceremony people took bodhisattva vows. I said, yeah, it's a big commitment when we walk on this spiritual path. We're saying that I'm taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And from that ground of faith, I set my intentions. And my intentions then are to be of service to everyone. And third, he says, once you have faith and make vows, you must actually practice. You should think, I can go for a day without food, but can't go for a day without cultivating. Master Hua really emphasizes this point. So it's a good method, right? So at any time you think about food, you can then think in my mind, Master Hua says, whenever I think about food, I need to think about cultivating. Or whenever I think about sleeping, I should think about cultivating. Whenever I'm putting on my clothes, I should think about cultivating. That's one of the actual practices in the monastery. We call it the 53 small mantras. And so as we go through the day, when we see food, we have some reflections. When we put on our robes, we have some reflections. And when we go to sleep, we wish that all living beings have bodies and hearts and minds that are peaceful and at ease. Faith, vows, and practice should form the foundation of your cultivation. As you now begin to cultivate, take faith, vows, and practice as your work. And you must not be lazy. I don't want any lazy disciples. In America, I've had several lazy bugs for disciples, but I drove them all out. I don't believe any of you will be lazy. Being lazy yourself is not that important. But if you are lazy, you will keep your teacher tied up here. You'll be forced to wait around until you become a Buddha. You have to wait around until you become a Buddha before he can become a Buddha. Do you see how important that is? There is a saying, don't be afraid of going slow, just be afraid of standing still. If you make steady progress, no matter how slow it is, you will eventually reach your goal. But if you stop altogether, you have no chance of success. So we cultivators of the way must be vigorous and practice giving. In giving, we should give to others, not tell others to give to us. In keeping the precepts, we must keep them ourselves, not just tell others to keep the precepts. Okay, now that's really important, especially as we start this new life, is that we don't take this standard that we have for our ethical behavior and start to judge everyone else by it. It's a very easy kind of first mistake to do, rather than just kind of using these dharmas to reflect on ourselves, to begin to transform our lives. We begin to use these standards as a way to fortify our ego and sense of superiority by looking and seeing the faults in other people. Because honestly, that's in the world, it's very common. That's how we develop a sense of solidity. We take refuge in the self. So here we're not doing that. we're taking refuge in the Dharma, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And so in that process, we actually reflect inward to purify the heart and mind. In being patient, we must ourselves be patient and not just tell others to be patient. We must bear what cannot be borne, yield what others cannot yield, and eat what others cannot eat. Take what others cannot take, and do what others cannot do. If you can be that way, you have patience. And then you must also be vigorous and practice dhyana meditation, and then you'll have some wisdom. With wisdom, you can then become a Buddha. Now, as to the Buddha, many people believe in the Buddha, but if you ask him, who is the Buddha? They'll reply, I don't know. So is that wonderful or not? Now, this is actually an interesting question that I think you can pose to yourself. If Master Hua were to ask you, so who do you think the Buddha is? How would you respond? Because so many people don't know, I will explain what a Buddha is. Buddha is a Sanskrit word which means an enlightened one. He is enlightened. He understands. He has great wisdom. If you have great wisdom, you are a Buddha. If he has great wisdom, or she has great wisdom, he or she is a Buddha. I just said that I was a very muddle-headed, and that's the reason I haven't become a Buddha. But if you understand, you are a Buddha. But your understanding must be genuine. You cannot, as it were, try to make tea with cold water. If you really understand, you will not claim to understand. This is like the question which Layman Chen asked a while ago. He said, since everything is empty, why do we still need to cultivate? I'm going to tell the story. And I answered him saying, if you are really empty, then why do you need to ask? Let me just check. This, I think it was in 1976 in Los Angeles. So I think he was actually doing this ceremony with a group with Helen Wu. I'll maybe tell that story and finish. So what happened was Helen invited Master Hua down to, actually first Helen wanted to fly up with her friends, or maybe drive up with her friends and others to take refuge. But so many people wanted to take refuge with Master Hua that in the end they invited Master Hua down to LA. And as Rev Hong Sher describes it, the scene, he said it was a big deal. All the spiritual masters and teachers of the area wanted to show up. So there's this layman who came, who thought he was pretty hot stuff. You know, you can see him walking in with a little bit of a swagger, and everyone's there. And so he says he's very audacious. He just came up to Master Hua, no bow, really kind of loud voice, saying something like, if everything is empty, why cultivate? And just looks Master Hua in the eye. If everything is empty, why cultivate? And Rav Hong Sher says, Master Hua looked at the guy and said, if everything is empty, why do you need to ask? And he said the guy went, all the kind of puffed up air just left him. And he's walked away. So that's the story that Master Hua is saying. But I think in that story and in this process of taking refuge, and we're actually shifting our focus from fortifying the ego, fortifying the self, to actually putting down our roots in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And because we have faith there, we can begin to let go of the self. So maybe today, I think it wouldn't be bad to really reflect on who is the Buddha to you, and where do we really put our faith. Okay, so let's do 3 steps, 1 bow.